Okay, it looks like we are live, and this time I have some guests with me, Mr. Marty Cannell and Tony McCree from Rolling Dice and Taking Names.
Hey
Hello,
everybody, thanks
gentlemen.
for having us.
How's it
I'm,
going?
my name's Marty. I'm the guy that can't get his lower third working on the bottom down here that I've been fossing with for the past 15 minutes. So,
That's why we're a little bit late. Google is misbehaving dramatically today.
I don't know if it's Google or if it's just the inept, technically inclined engineers that can't make things happen, but that's
yeah,
okay. We're good
probably
with it.
did.
Are we all in software?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
So, I don't know.
that's funny.
Stupid computers.
Yeah. So today we are going to talk top 5 living card games or living card game style games because Fantasy Flight has the trademark or copyright on that term LCG. And if you don't know what an LCG is, it is that it's not a dog barking, but it's it's sort of like a trading card game, but you don't have to, buy booster packs and get random cards. You buy one set or a couple sets, and you get all the cards that you need. And then they come out with packs either like every month or every couple of months. And it's basically a trading card game without the trading, without the rarity, without the collectability. And they've really taken off over the last couple of years. And I think, I won't speak for these gentlemen, but I think for a lot of folks, they kind of fill that niche of Magic and whatnot without, the money investment and the time investment and all that kind of good stuff. And most of them are head-to-head competitive, but not all of them. And there are some, I think, that might show up on our list that are not necessarily like that. But I think over the last couple of years, we've really seen them take off and sort of branch out just beyond Fantasy Flight.
It's funny. So Tony and I's history with board game actually goes back to CCGs, and actually we really got into the board game hobby pretty hard and heavy through CCGs. And if anybody knows who's in CCGs and any types, it's just a money pit because of the randomness of booster packs. So you're buying booster packs trying to collect everything. So when the LCG format came out around 2008, we were like all over this because it gave us the opportunity to have the same sort of thing of having pre-constructed decks and expansions coming out, but without having to chase that rare card through all these booster boxes that we're looking for, or paying outrageous prices on the secondary market for something like that. So LCG really fit what we were looking for, and I was really excited when it came out, and Tony and I have played a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing going back and just looking through the closet of the boxes, the card boxes of games that we no longer play. I mean, when we started out, Marty, they were what? The collectible card games, they were $3.29 a pack. We bought enough of them. That's how well that price sticks in my mind.
We did. Tony and I would actually go out on eBay and wherever we could order online and order booster boxes, and then we'd have drafts. So we'd put all the packs of cards on the table and draft packs, open them all up, sort them, and then trade there to make sure both of us had all the commons, uncommons, and as many rares as possible. So it was this whole thing. It was fun. But after a while, after we were buying boxes and boxes of these boosters, and then you have all these duplicate commons and everything, it just got too much. So what's great about the LCG format is it gives you, every pack has the exact same thing. You only get what you need to be able to build decks, and that's it.
Yep, I said a similar thing. I played Magic a little bit, but I had a lot of friends that really loved Magic, and so mostly I just kind of borrowed their cards and borrowed their decks, and then got some of my own, and then I got really heavy into the Versus system trading card game back in around 2004. I think that was out. But yeah, I remember buying. Oh, and the World of Warcraft trading card game. I got into that for like the first 2 sets or so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But yeah, I can definitely empathize with getting booster boxes and then going into the store and like, grab a couple of packs and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I think from our side of it, the reason why it was so marketable to us was Marty and I would go and you'd buy those Topps booster packs for baseball cards. I mean, growing up, 70s, 80s, nothing felt better than to open up that seal on those wax packs and seeing the your superstars right there, and of course having that delicious gum as you sort through them. I mean, that's the only thing missing in the CCG model is the gum, Marty.
Oh, that would be sweet if FFG started putting gum in their data packs and packs for FF. That'd be yes. We must make this happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
could you imagine the outcry?
Oh yeah, I mean, it'd be great. I mean, I mean, if you were to throw gum from a Topps trading card pack, I think it would still be in the landfill next to a hot dog.
It probably would be.
So, but Joel, I mean, from a standpoint of CCGs, I think that's what fed that need was. Here we were having to go out and look for that rare, and we were used to that. It seemed like it took me forever to get a Ron Say card for my 1978 Topps, and I was right there with Marty. I had to complete a set. I completed a set when I was in baseball. I am going to complete a CCG. So thank you, LCGs. I don't have to worry about that. Unless I need 3 of one version, but we'll go into that later.
Yeah, that's a topic I was wanting to touch on too. So it went from looking for that rookie card of Ron Say, like Tony said, looking for the rare Arwen from the Lord of the Rings card set. So we're both we love to collect things, and we're collectible guys. So it ended up costing us a lot of money, but now. We don't have that issue anymore. Of course, and that's until last year Dice Masters came out, and they kind of reintroduced the cheap booster pack with their dice game and everything. But
yeah, they really get you with that 99-cent booster.
Yes, yeah. It's only $1. Let me get 17 of them.
Yeah. So, as we said, we're going to talk down our top 5, and we're going to kind of do it what I like to call Dice Tower style. So if, for example, my number 4 is Marty's number 2, then we'll hold off and wait. And I have branched out and done a top 10, but Tony Marty... Yeah, well, I don't know. The last one on my top 10 is a little bit of a stretch to put on like a best of list. I mean, I think it's a good game, of course, but it just like kind of feel funny putting on a top anything. So if they mention something that's in my top 10 but not my top 5, I'll mention it at that point as well. But we're just going to go top 5 because there's basically 10 plus maybe a 1 or 2 actual LCGs out there.
Right.
The other thing to keep in mind is some of these, to me, an LCG means you get the monthly packs or however often, and then you build a deck. So the style of game might change up a little bit, but I don't consider Pathfinder the adventure card game an LCG. Now that's close because you do get your monthly pack, but you don't really do any deck building. You get new cards that you add that are just, to me, like just a regular expansion. You get new locations and new adventures, but you don't do any deck preparation. I think, to me, that's kind of a part of it. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree with that, but to me, that was kind of the linchpin there, because there was Pathfinder and then there was a couple other games, but I was like, well, Sentinels of the Multiverse could be an LCG, but not necessarily because you just get new stuff. You don't really do any deck building.
Right. I think that's the thing for me. Is there a time to pre-construct your deck before you get to the table? And that's what differentiates me. If the deck is being built at the table, that's like a deck builder for me. That's like Dominion. I got to come in and have that deck pre-constructed beforehand.
And on my side, I agree. You got to be able to build a deck, and it's got to have enough functionality or difference in the deck that it's requires some like I won't say events, or it's not just one set. You got to have varying parts of the deck to make it competitive.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so the order that I have our list in is we'll just do Marty first. We'll just go through our 5s and our 4s. And
okay.
So Marty's number 5 is also my number 8. But go ahead, Marty.
All right, so my number 5 is going to be Warhammer Invasion. And I struggle with this, and I struggle with this today because I had 4 or 5 that could fit into the 4 or 5 slot. And Warhammer Invasion is... Tony, correct me if I'm wrong. This was the first LCG we tried, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this was 2008, and this was from Fantasy Flight. And the reason why I put it in there was because of the unique mechanic it had of being able to take your units and wherever you deploy them around this card is they did something different for you. And so it wasn't about just putting guys out in the field and battling. You had different areas around your it wasn't called Kingdom. God, I forgot what the name of it was, what it was called.
Board there.
Capital. That's it. Around your capital. So on one side of the board, you could put your units, and they would give you resources. Another side of the board, you'd put your units. It would allow you to draw cards. You put them at the top. They were used for fighting. So I just thought it was a really unique mechanic in how that you could use the exact same thing. It just depends on where you placed them on what it did for you. And a lot of card games, there's the typical at the beginning of the turn, you draw a card or you get X amount of resources. In this game, you dictated how many cards you draw per turn, how many resources you get, where you deployed them around the card. And the goal was to attack the other person's areas around their capital, and if you destroy 2 of them, the game was over. Now, this was a Warhammer fantasy theme, so they had a lot of different factions that you could play from. We got out of it early. I heard that as the game went on over the years that there were some combos that became really powerful, and they're having a lot of power creep that came into the game to where FFG was really having to go back and starting to errata or knock out cards, because with the ability to be able to draw as many cards as you want by putting as many cards out as you can, people could kind of mill their deck and find the combos they were looking for and kind of run away with the game. Now, since then, obviously, Invasion has been canceled, and I don't know whether it's because of lack of popularity or it was just because maybe they gotten to the point where a lot of the game was starting to break because of combos or anything. So that's my number 5.
Cool. That's everything you said is what I remember from it. I think it was my first LCG. I never actually owned it. A friend of mine had it, and well, actually, I bought it for him for his birthday or something. And then he got a couple of I don't remember what you called them, the little packs, and then a big expansion. And I remember that whole where you put the guy thing was really neat. And I think it's an Eric Lang design. Am I correct in that?
Actually, it was designed by. I didn't write that one down. Keep talking.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Okay. Let's see here. I'd bring it. Yeah, it's Eric Klein. His name's on there. Okay. But that thread kind of follows through a lot of his other LCGs, which may or may not show up on our list here, of the kind of the multi-use card that, depending on what you use it for, or, like in Game of Thrones, which isn't on any of our lists, but it's my number 10. You can attack with different ways. You can do intrigue versus power or strength, and that kind of stuff, and then. The 40K Conquest, you have sort of the different things that you can do with your card. You can either deploy to a planet and different stuff like that. So it seems to be like a thread that maybe originated, I don't know, with this first game.
Right, and now it's but see, the thing is, I'm looking at now, Game of Thrones, he didn't do.
Didn't he? Well, that's true.
Christian Peterson.
Right. It was originally a TCG. I forgot about that.
That's right. And actually, Tony and I played Game of Thrones, the CCG, and when FFG took it over and made an LCG, Tony and I got out because we had spent so much money on the CCG. It's like, we're not starting over again. So that's why we missed one of the first LCG games, because it's like, well, we've already played this and we're not reinvesting any more money.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I enjoyed Game of Thrones, that was for sure. But like you, Joel, a friend of mine had that game as well, so I got to play it, and that's really all I got. We got to play it a few times, and I enjoyed it. But if I remember correctly, Marty, it didn't grab me, But it's still a great game.
Well, what Joel said was true. I like how you can, instead of just fighting comparison of how much damage you could do to somebody else, there were different aspects of. This person is better at this, and now I forgot the terms. This person, you're going to go in and you win by having this resource or this value, and another one is you could win by battle. Another one was, and help me out, Joel. What were the different things in Game of Thrones that you even to this day you have
it's intrigue, and which will make you discard cards if you win that attack, and there's power, or not power, melee or strength. And then power is sort of like a nebulous thing, and that's the victory points that you get.
Right, that's it. So I enjoyed that. Yeah.
All right. So that was Marty's number 5, Warhammer Invasion. And Tony, what was your number 5?
My number 5 has been around for some time, probably over 50 years. That's right, a living card game that has been living that long, and that is Pba Baseball. Now,
I'm sure it's not the undead card game.
I'm sure it's not the undead card game, dude. Come on now, unless you're the Chicago Cubs fan or something like that.
Oh wow! Hey, they won today. Come on.
Oh, I know, but I mean, APBA Baseball, how would it even qualify as a living card game? Well, you don't have to buy them monthly, you just have to buy them seasonally, and APBA put out football, they put out golf, they've put out all these things, and for those who've never played the game, or if you've even played Stratomatic, you're basically, and y'all have heard us talk about this on our podcast, is you have a lineup of guys, and everybody's like, but you're not building a deck. Well, it depends. When I was growing up, we would take the season that was released and we would all draft cards from that season. So we would build super teams or professional teams that basically fantasy baseball teams. And from that, we would have a good time of trying to run a season with our fantasy baseball team. And these cards were very meticulous on the stats, and they were pretty darn accurate. But it was a push your luck. I mean, you were rolling dice and you were comparing the results on a big placard or a big old 11 by 17 board if you had it back in the day. And to me, every year we looked forward to getting the next season, to be able to go out and, I get to draft Dale Murphy, or oh, wow, we got the 1927 season. Who's going to pick up Ruth? What about the 1940 season with Roger Maris, and that was an exciting part of it. So for me, number 5, and I still to this day, I wish that I had a set of APB. I always go out and I look at it and I think, you can still buy these things. Go out and buy it. But I'm like, who's going to play? Games have so far advanced, but who's going to play with me in my circle of friends here?
So how did the game actually...
Like to say, Roger Maris wouldn't have been in the 1940. I'm just saying.
I'm sorry, 60. 60, thank you.
Okay.
My bad.
So when you play a game of this, after you draft your team, I'm just looking on Board Game Geek there, it looks like there's a little bit of a board or something, and then you roll some dice and...
Take some names, yeah, man. No, you basically, you've got a lineup, you got your first batter. The opposing team has a lineup as well. You add up their total points for their infield strength, and they have pictures, and all the pitchers have various ratings, A through D, or AC, or however it is, and the batter rolls the dice, and he looks on his card. If it's if he rolls a 1 and a 3, he looks a 1 and a 3. Oh, look, that's a strikeout. Or, oh, look, he just rolled a 66. That's a home run, because you would look on the board based on the number on the card. And depending on the characteristics of the player, his cards would adjust or change depending. They were also fast. You could adjust the defense based as a manager of the other team. I want to play in. I want to play double strength depth. Oh, wait, I'm calling for a bunt. Hey, let me bring in a pitcher with a different rating, and that may change the location or the outcome of the next thrown ball, because he went from a grade A pitcher down to a grade C. And there were rules, there was injuries, there were stolen bases. There was even a card or a situation where if you rolled, you got a rain out.
Oh, wow. So it kind of sounds like it verges towards simulation a little bit. Was there like a lot of rolling against tables, like combat resolution table type of things? Or?
You got it. It's very simple. Exactly. And to me, growing up, it was just the joy of being able to build that team. And you could do it now today, And
it's still going today, huh?
It's still going today. Football's still going today. I mean, you can get these online, or at least last I checked. I don't know if that website is going somewhere where I shouldn't be entering a credit card number, but either way, it's out there.
Cool. Alrighty. So my number 5 is not on anybody else's list, and I'm a little bit upset about that. But I've listened to your episode where you covered this game, so I wasn't surprised. My number 5 is the new Versus LCG that just came out this year. I'm a big fan of the original Versus trading card game, which came out in 2004. And this, to me, is actually a better game, a better engine. And I have had a blast playing this a lot over the last couple of months. It's superhero themed and has very tactical and nuanced combat is what really drives it for me. And even as I've kept playing it over the last couple of months, the way that your sort of curve breaks out in this game, and one sort of problem with the older versions was you kind of always had to hit your drop, which meant on turn 1 you wanted to play a character that cost 1 resource. On turn 2 you wanted to turn 2 and a 3 and a 4. There were very few decks in that sort of metagame of that game that you could sort of underdrop. I could on turn 6 I could play 2 3s, and that would always be a horrible thing. Not always, but there were very few decks where that was good. Whereas now that I've sort of played a lot with the deck building, you can really do that, and a lot of the better cards are sort of the undercosted cards. So you can set up a little bit more of the combos, and sort of the tactics of like when you attack and everything is very interesting because you don't have like a life pool in this. You have a main character, and if your main character is knocked out or takes enough wounds or stuns, then that's how you lose. So you're trying to attack directly this character. And so there's like a little bit of cat and mouse with that character, and that character can actually level up, and they get this really cool ability. Like, I don't know if anybody watching is comic book fans. I know Marty is. I'm not sure about Tony, but the Thanos card, you can upgrade, and he gets the Infinity Gauntlet power. And then you can just, if you can activate that, it's difficult to activate. You can just wreck your opponent. They have to discard a card, stun characters, wound a bunch of characters, and all this. They got to do all this stuff. And so, but it's this cool kind of goal that you can go for. So I really enjoy this. It's very easy to play, and I feel like this one will probably move up for me. It kind of depends on the expansions that come out, which is a big part of these games. They're going to come out with a couple more Marvel expansions, and then they kind of go off into Never Never Land with Aliens versus Predator, which I'm kind of excited about. But then they're talking like The Crow and Firefly, which I find odd mixing with superheroes. But I know you two didn't really care for the game. You thought it was kind of okay from my listen of your show.
Well, so the it's on my honorable mention list, and the card, the games I was trying to decide between my 4 and 5 slot made the honorable mention, and that's one of them because I really do think this game is better than the previous version, like you said. I like having the main character that you go after. The way the combat's done is a lot easier. You ain't got this breakthrough damage and stuff to consider. I think also how you align them. You haven't got to be directly behind somebody to help them block you. It doesn't matter. You just have a front row and back row. So they've really streamlined all that. I think and I said this on the show, I said, I think it's a very solid game. To me, it just didn't add a lot of new mechanics. It felt like it was still a game that was made back in 2004 somewhat. But no, for a superhero card game, I like it. And my boys play it, my sons play it, and I enjoy playing with them. And when we got Epic just recently, and spoiler alert, Epic didn't end up on anybody's list. I think it's a decent little game. And here, the boys say, hey, do you want to play a game of Epic or Versus with me? It's going to be Versus every time. Because I do enjoy the game. It just didn't make my top 5, but I still think it's a good game, and I'm curious to see where the expansions go too. But like you said, the Alien versus Predator, the Crow thing, it's like I would almost just rather go get DC and let's just have a Marvel DC thing and run with that for a while.
Yeah, I think that's a pipe dream, but you never know. I'm exactly with you on that whole thing.
Well, I mean, I enjoy comics. I mean, I still have all my Spider-Mans, and from that standpoint, and I really want to like the game. And like we tried out the first system and the second system, enjoyed it. But I think, Joel, for me, it's when I look at my list as we go down through it, I've only got one game on here that's really attacking the other player. I think I've gotten tired of that. After so many years of attacking the other player, I'm looking for something different. And sometimes just like, oh, I'm attacking somebody else. Yay. And I know I'm attacking the hero, but once again, how's this different than what's already out there? Why would I invest in it? Update the art. Give me objectives. Give me something that is beyond just how can I build a better force defense than you got, and we go after one another. And I think that's where card games have gone for me over since the Lord of the Rings TCG.
Well, that's definitely fair enough. I think that's something that would be really cool in a superhero type of game as well. So anyway, I love the game. Yeah, so anybody that says, yeah, it's okay, I'm like, oh, they hate it.
No, no, not at all.
We don't hate it at all. I mean, I think it is well, when we've played, I'm looking for the expansions. Maybe later, maybe Marty and I, when we do our little planning sessions and we always play our game, maybe that's what we bring out because he's playing with his boys, and then I can borrow decks or he'll suck me in. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, except I'm still am pretty ticked at the quality of cards they use. But that's a whole different story.
Yeah, I will say,
especially from a company called Upper Deck, who made their money in their industry, being on the industry for the quality baseball card they made. Anyway, go ahead.
yes, and they were primo quality cards when they came out. Yeah,
top notch.
I will say they are sending me actually replacement cards. So I haven't received them yet, but I did get word a week or so ago that they will be sending them. So if you have gotten, and mine were like basically dinged up as they opened them out of the pack. There was like dings everywhere. And from folks that I know that have gotten their replacements, the replacements are better. So anyway, there's that.
Oh, that's really good. That's good to know because actually we got ours at Gen Con also, and my sons went off to open and play, and they showed back up in the vendor hall later. It's like, are y'all done? It's like, nope, we need to go buy some deck protectors because these cards are in really bad shape. Yeah. So they went and bought a bunch of card protectors and sleeved them all before they started playing. So that's good to know that maybe the next run is a little bit higher quality.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to, let's see here. You guys both have the same number 4, and it's my number 7. So whoever wants to take it away.
Well, why don't you take it away? Show us what you got there. Why is it number 7, and why can't we convince you to be number 4?
Maybe we should say what it is.
Okay, well, it's Doomtown. This is one. Let's see, my 5, 6, and 7. So my 5 was Versus, 6 is I'll mention later because it's on your list, and my 7 was Doomtown. Those 3, like Marty was saying, were really competing for that number 5 spot. And then after 7, it gets kind of weaker. But it's complicated to teach, and so that's kind of a barrier for me, just getting people to play it with me. It's not bad. Once you get into the game, it really flows. I mean, it's just, it's just got that, it's very different though, and I think that kind of lends itself to Tony's point about not just being head-to-head. Now, it is head-to-head, but you've got like this sort of 3D space of the center of town and, the different sides, and I don't know, the theme is great. I think it's fantastic. I love the theme of it, and that's what really kind of pushes it up. You've got like this steampunk, sci-fi, magic, it's Western, all mixed together. It's just fantastic. And I love the whole, like, where you draw cards to, like, go first. You draw poker hands, and then the combat's poker hands, and that's really neat. And it's a very, Marty's showing us stuff here. There's the board that you get. And, but that's the other thing is with the deck building, it's very sort of obtuse because you've got to sort of build in for that whole poker hand idea and also the combos. And it works, but it's just also very hard to get into. And I think that's why it's not higher, is just because it's just that sort of barrier to entry. And it's not something that I pursued past the base set. And I actually think, though, before I let you guys go off on it, is the base set actually, unlike some of these games, is like sort of feels complete as well. I think you could, if you really wanted, you could get the base set and just play with that for a long time.
Oh yeah, you can, and that's the beauty of the Doomtown. It gives you everything you need in the base set, gives you some good starter decks, get the feel of the game. I agree, the initial learning curve of it is stronger for this game. You got all these games. You got to relearn keywords, and I think an app Marty and I are going to figure out how to do is a 99-cent app where you just type in a keyword and it lists. And we've got patents on this, people. You type in a keyword for a card game, and it pulls in all the definitions of every one of the card games, so you can take a look at it. So we're working on that, people. Don't you think that you're going to get by with this one?
Yeah.
Right, Marty?
Yeah. So Joel hit on all the points I was going to make about Doomtown too. The deck building rules is very cool. You can only have 4 of one particular suit and number, like in a 52-card deck. You have to build a 52-card deck. the theme works really, really well. But the one reason why it made number 4 on my list is because it does stand out because there is an area control element for an LCG type game that doesn't exist in a lot of other games. Because you're trying to control deeds in a town, and you have your dudes that you put out, and your dudes can move between the deeds that you have and the town square and outside the town and everything, and wherever they are will dictate where you can have fights and showdowns and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So there is an area control element which doesn't exist in a lot of different games. Sure, there is the combat where you're having the shootouts and you're trying to hit each other, but that's not really the goal. Well, I guess it is somewhat the goal of the game. You're trying to destroy enough of theirs but gather enough deeds to where you kind of like taking over the town, and when you've taken it over, you win the game. Thematically, it works great. I love the theme, but I'm with you, Joe. It made number 4 because it was unique enough to stand out for me. After the base set, I didn't invest a lot more into it because there is a lot to that game, and there's a lot to learn, and there is a steep learning curve. And I think building that 52-card deck is one of the toughest deck building exercises I've ever tried to go through in building an LCG type deck.
Mm.
And for me, as Marty said, Joel, to your point, I love Western themes. Loved it. I was so excited when this theme came out. But to Marty's point, the 52-card deck, to me, that's why it's number 4 for me. Is I love it when a deck comes together. I love it when a plan comes together, and I've been very efficient in how I've done that. And I think Doomtown brought that for me. And the reason why we didn't stick with it was it just didn't catch on here, or I would have still been into this game. I would still be enjoying this game, but it just didn't get the following. And that's the problem with a lot of these games that people have to do is what is being played in your area. And unfortunately, it didn't stick here.
Correct.
Yep. That is a drawback. You got to have people to play with and want to invest over a long period of time with all of these.
So that was our number 4. What's your number 4?
Yeah, my number 4 is actually Android Netrunner. And that's, well, let's just say that's higher. I shouldn't have said anything. That's higher on your list. My number 4 is higher on your list.
Oh,
Whoops,
you don't listen to the Dice
rule.
Tower enough.
I'm not used to this. I think I'm fired now. I don't know.
So your number 4 will be covered later. Right?
Yes, my number 4 will be covered later. All right.
Man, we might as well just jump down to never mind. All right.
Yeah. So you all have the same number 3, which is my number 6.
So it's like we're on a podcast together, Joel. I don't understand this.
Well, Joel, you could give us. Is your number 3 one of ours?
Oh yeah, let's see.
Unique?
No, my number 3. Okay, yeah, let's do that. My number 3 is not on any of your list. So we'll skip to that. My number 3 is Star Wars: The Card Game.
Okay.
And that is of course, the newest one from Fantasy Flight. I guess there's been no other LCGs. They did have 2 or 3 trading card games back in the day.
Decipher, one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, I never played. I tried to play the Decipher one, but it was well after the game had been out, and it was just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what's going on. So, and I didn't have anybody to play with. I was just kind of checking it out myself. So I was like, nope, I'm not going to try to teach this to others. But yeah, the LCG I really like, and funnily enough, it's kind of for the theme, and yeah, it's Star Wars, and most people like Star Wars. But when it first came out, I kind of ignored it because it was getting kind of mediocre buzz. The theme was sort of a problem. You had like your X-Wing versus your Rancor type of thing, and all that stuff. And they said the game was okay. And I got into this one a fair bit. After a bit, I got the base set, and then like the whole first cycle, and then the next, whatever the big expansion was. And once you kind of get into it and mix up the decks, and that's the other thing is the deck building was really cool because there wasn't really a lot to it. You took these objective cards, and you had these 5 other cards that went with it, and those are the cards that go in your deck. You didn't really have to put a ton of thought and sort of agonize, and I kind of like that. And so you had like thematic tie-ins to whatever objectives you were putting in, and it was asymmetric as well. You had the Empire trying to basically hold out and sort of get the Death Star ticker up to the 12, and then the Rebels trying to go after different objectives, and and it has, funnily enough, similar sort of initiative mechanic to your guys' number 3, which we can talk about when we get to that. But I really liked how the theme actually ended up interacting, sort of to my main point. Like you had the Emperor versus, little peons, and just the way that the cards interacted and the special abilities and that kind of stuff, it really sort of elicited the theme. And I thought it was actually very thematic and sort of pushed it just above Netrunner in that regard, because I could just get into it more. And it was a little bit less complicated than Netrunner, a little bit less obtuse, really. And I really just was fascinated with the game for a little while and enjoyed it.
Yeah, now this is another one of those games that Tony and I didn't get into locally because there were no local players. There were a couple guys that Tony and I know that play card games who are heavy into Star Wars, and they got into it and bought a couple core sets, a couple expansions, tried to teach the game, and it just never caught on. And 2 hardcore Star Wars fans sold it and got out of it. So we never really got a chance to experience it, or it might be on the list somewhere, but it's one of those that we just never did because it's like, well, why invest money if there's nobody playing?
Right. Yeah. And I only got to do it, demoed it once, just to learn the basics behind it. I never really got to sit down and play it. Just he did a quick demo to try to bring me in, but I was so hardcore into your number 4 that there was no reason for me to drop some coin on this game as well for that company. I just couldn't do it. I could not bring myself to try to run 2 of these from that standpoint because I was having such fun in your number 4.
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing, Joel, with Tony and I is even though that these are LCGs and you're not buying a bunch of boosters, we try to limit ourselves to just 1 and at the most 2 card games at a time. And this one just came right on the heels of another one that we were heavily invested in and playing. It's like we know never have any time to play it, and that's great that FFGs keep pumping out these LCGs. But I feel like I'm missing some decent games because it's like, but I'm still enjoying this one over here, and I can't invest in both of your models, sort of deal.
Yeah, absolutely, and like I said, I didn't get into this one when it first came out for the same reason that you guys mentioned, is that elusive number 4. I was still into it at that time when this came out. And so I was like, yeah, it's the same thought process. Was like, well, I've already got these monthly packs, and that I'm getting, and it's like, well, I know this game is great. I'm not sure about this other one, and like I said, it had kind of the mediocre buzz.
Right.
I got a feeling for me, if number 4 had come out after your number 3, I would have been all over number 3 before number 4. All right, so Star Wars would have probably, because it's familiar to me. I know the characters, I know who it is, and therefore it would have probably been there ahead of the other one, just because, oh wow, this is so cool to be able to live through, as a kid, the 70s. Hey, Star Wars, this is awesome.
Okay, so let's go to you. Okay, you have the same number 3, and this, like I said, it's my number 6.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Go for it, Marty.
So I felt kind of odd putting this one here because it's so new. And it's Ashes, Rise of the Phoenixborn from Plaid Hat Games designer Isaac Vega. But the reason why I did was because there are enough mechanics in this game that feel so new and so fresh that it had to get up on the list. And here's the thing, Tony talked earlier about there's very few games right now where you just want to put guys out and have them fight each other because that's such a common trope going back to Magic. And that's exactly what this is. You've got your Phoenixborn bringing out allies, they fight each other, and you try to knock each other down to 0 health. That's very Magicus, nothing new about it. But it's the little tweaks and stuff they put in there that really shot it up the list for me. One is the dice mechanic. I got some of the dice here. Using dice as resources, and I was very skeptical of this because I worried about the randomness of the dice rolls. And when I first heard about it, it's like, I don't know if this is going to be a game for me, until I found out, well, they have a way to mitigate some of the luck of the dice rolls. I mean, you've already got luck in a card game because you're drawing cards, now you're introducing dice. But with their meditate mechanic, you can adjust the die to any side you want just by discarding a card from the top of your draw deck, from your hand, or from your spell board, and get what you need. And these resources, basically, there's 3 levels of resources, and the higher the level, the better stuff that you can get out. That was one mechanic. The other thing was, I cannot believe nobody's ever thought of this before, picking your starting hand. You pick the first 5 cards. There's no random draw off the top of the deck, and it's like, oh, I hope I get the cards I need to start my engine going. With this game, you pick the 5 cards. If you have an engine, then you get them in those first 5 cards and you go. Deck building, only 30 cards. That means if I play all 5 cards in my first hand, and at the beginning of your turn you draw 5 cards, I've just seen a third of my deck. That means there's less of a luck in the draw, because you'll see a third of your deck by the second turn. So now this is becoming all about strategy. If I can mitigate dice rolls and I can get into the cards that I need really quick, then it's all about making a tight deck that works together. And that was just it for me. When I saw those things work together, my mind was just blown. And I probably stole all your thunder, Tony.
Wait, let me do the camera right. Mind blown. So, right there. Rolling dice. My resources are there. I'm not having to draw them. I'm not having to build them up. They're all right there. And Marty talked about building the deck, but you also have to build your dice pool, right, Marty?
Mm-hmm.
I got him drinking some sweet tea over there. But yeah, you've got. So what? You don't have to have equal number of dice. You can have 5 of this one, 4 of this one, 1 of this. I love that fact. I'm not having to wait on the resources. I've got to use them. I've got to use them to the best of my ability. How am I going to play them based on what's in my hand? How do I need to manipulate them? I found when we were playing this that I am thinking way farther out in advance on this game than I have any other deck building type game, LCG, TCG, whatever. I'm having to really plan out how am I going to do the most damage. The other thing that when Marty and I were doing it, that got me on this. Normally I'm a gut feel kind of guy that I'm going to either really enjoy it or I'll stick with something. This thing just grabbed me. It was the fact that he knew my weakness. He knows my weakness in a deck building game. He knows I love a Zerg deck. He knows I love a Denial deck. And he made me play those, and that just hooked me. You know what I'm talking about, Joel? It was just
absolutely.
And he's like, oh, let's see if you can handle this Zerg deck. And bam, I killed him with it, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, for people who play the game, I gave Tony Aradale to play as the Zerg deck, and I gave him Saria, which is the denial deck of making you mill somebody else's deck, because I knew that were 2 types of mechanics Tony loves to build around, and it sucked him right in. Another really cool thing about this one, too, is on your turn, you get to take a main action, you get to take a side action. That's it. Turns are back and forth so fast. It's like boom, boom, your turn. Boom, boom, your turn. Boom, boom, your turn. 10 resources per side, per round. Oh, mwah.
And then your hero can only get out so many minions, or can they get out the spells? How do you like to do it? You like to be a spellcaster, or would you like to have minions running for you? Or better yet, and if that wasn't enough, and we'll stop gushing and all that over this game, which I'm still waiting on mine. For some odd reason, it has been delayed to get to the distributors. Marty pre-ordered his Smart Man plaid hat, hooked him up. I put mine in from another distributor, and I'm still waiting on it. But the artwork, OMG. Yeah, oh, incredible. Marty, say the woman's name.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I can't say it, so.
Yeah.
It just Fernando Suarez.
Yeah. Incredible artwork. Incredible artwork on those cards.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm in agreement. I know it's only my number 6, but like I said, it was kind of competing for that number 5 slot. Like the dice mechanic's great. The whole like initiative mechanic, which reminds me a lot of, well, frankly, Versus and more of the old Versus, but also the Star Wars card game where you kind of go back and forth and exhaust characters, and that initiative token as it kind of goes around, that can actually be sort of an important piece of information, because you're like, okay, well, if I get first crack at you next turn, and if I can get you to a point where I've sort of just kind of softened your defenses over time, and then I can come in and just wham right on your summon or your Phoenixborn, That's a very interesting sort of mechanic, and like all the stuff you're talking about, like the limits on characters and the limits on spells, and the whole draw whatever you want the first turn. This is, to me, this one is another one like Versus that can move up. The reason that I put Versus above this actually is because, like you said, there's a big community for Versus players. I belong to like a group of almost 1,000 players on Facebook, and
Wow.
I don't see that with Ashes. Now that potential is there, I think, because Plaid Hat, for example, they just add like an online deck builder, and I think they're kind of moving into sort of that organized play world and stuff like that to help support the game. And I'd like to see more expansions and stuff, but for a game that goes in this genre, it's probably maybe the most unique. Just the dice mechanic and the dice mitigation, and just like all the stuff we've talked about. It's really a very unique thing and very fun. It kind of triggers that little like Euro brain of me, where it's like, oh, I'm just really noodling over what I'm going to do on my turn, and just so many different options.
Right. And Joel, you mentioned, and everybody plays this online, Hearthstone. Everybody plays. That was World of Warcraft TCG. I think back to that game and how the various decks were. I mean, some of the faults of it were the resources, but any card could be a resource. So that's kind of how I associate the dice. But I also think back of how some of the decks we built in there, and how, I played the Hunter because I had all those various minions that could go out and do quick attacks and hard attacks, and that was my Zerg deck. And it takes me back to that as well. So, I loved World of Warcraft. That was a great game. We enjoyed the mess out in the raids, but I know, where is he going with this? He's squirreling. I think that brought me to why I love Ashes so much. I saw a lot of World of Warcraft in Ashes from that standpoint when I looked at the decks.
Yeah, and they did a really good job as well of, like you said, putting in those different archetypes. Just right out the gate. You've got each of the different, I think there's 6 Phoenixborn, maybe there's 8. I can't remember. I have to go look at the box there, but
my box is still waiting to be delivered, so you'd have to ask Marty.
Yeah,
I think it's 6.
There's 6. Okay, yeah, and anyway, so if, like you said, there's a deck for your play style, and I haven't done any deck building with it, is the other thing. So the deck out of the box may be the best that I've seen, because like Versus, which I placed one higher, the decks out of the box are not very exciting at all. You got to get in there and deck build, which I think can be daunting a little bit. But this, I haven't really felt the need to do it, just because of like, oh, if I want to play big honking creatures, I'll play like the big burly guy with the ponytail or whatever, and then he brings out those like big rock monsters, and then the Zerg deck of those little myths and things, and so you've got what you want right out of the gate there.
Oh yeah.
And this is another example of those games like Doomtown, where you can buy the core set and really have to buy nothing else.
Right.
Because there are different type of archetypes, which you mentioned in there. It does provide some deck building, provides everything you need. You can actually play 4 players out of that box. So, so nice job, both AEG and Plaid Hat Games, for providing a core set that gives you everything and you only need one of. And I also will say, I think maybe one reason I've been enjoying this too, and I only know this because he just commented on the chat as we're talking, is I've been playing Rodney Smith and Watch It Played over Skype a lot, and he tends to lose a lot. So maybe that's one reason why it's moved up the list too, because it feels good to win.
Yeah.
Well, has he not learned? Has he not experienced? Has he not gained anything? Has he not leveled up on his knowledge?
He keeps trying the same Phoenixborn every time I won't switch to somebody else, and he's just determined to win with this one particular one. But
isn't there some expression about bad tactics don't constantly making the same mistake over and over? I forget. I'll have to look it up later. So anyway, that's that.
Well, okay.
Okay, we'll leave it at
Rodney
that.
is watching, so.
Oh crap! I better get on my best behavior.
Yeah, we're allowed to talk smack if he's watching.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait, there's a chat? I didn't even know there was a chat. Cool.
There is a chat.
All right.
So that was your number 3s. We did my number 3. And let me see here. This is going to be confusing. Okay. My number 2 is different. And each year, 1s and 2s are reversed.
correct.
So
Yes.
How do we do this? So let me just do my number 2.
Yeah,
and we'll
there you
jump
go.
into.
There you go.
So mine is Imperial Settlers, which I have many asterisks by, because it's probably the one that is not like the other out of all of these games, because it's designed, first of all, to be multiplayer more than the other games. You can play it 2-player, but I think it actually works best with more.
Mhm.
And it's basically like a civilization card game. You can take on the Japanese, the Romans, the Egyptians, barbarians, and now the Atlanteans with the latest expansion. And it's very reminiscent of like a Race for the Galaxy or 51st State, if you've played those games. And you do have deck building, though, in this, because there's a main deck that everybody pulls from, and then you have your faction-specific deck. And so you can tweak that now with the expansions. And so I fit it in here because it is, if I had to, my druthers, and I had to pick one of these games to play, I would pick this one probably over all of these, except for the number 1 that I have. And so it's just a very unique game. Now, it isn't head-to-head combat, but neither is your 2-in-1, which we'll get to in a minute. But I really love this game, and I've really grown to like it even more as the expansions have come out. Now, the base game I liked, but once that first expansion came out, and then I got the opportunity to deck build and tweak and build some really cool strategies, that's when I was like, okay, this game is great. I'm going to stick with this one. Like, for example, with the first expansion, I was really able to get the Japanese deck to a spot where I thought it was a great deck, and I loved to play it. Now, with the base game only, it was very difficult and hard. I hated playing the Japanese. I never wanted to play that. But once that first expansion came in, I was able to kind of tweak it and really experiment with the different approaches and everything. And then the Atlanteans now is just a whole completely different way to win the game. So anyway, I've really enjoyed it. I don't know if you guys, I know you guys have played it, but I don't know if you guys would even consider it on this list or where you'd put it.
So you and I talked offline about our list and what qualified or not. And when you said it, I was like, what? And I started thinking, I went, yeah. No, with the asterisk beside it, I totally agree, because now with the expansions, they have indications on the card of how many, there's level 1s, 2s, and 3s, and you can have 3 of this, 2 of this, 1 of this, etc. to build a fixed number deck, and I can't remember the fixed size off the top of my head. There's a fixed size faction deck that you build. Well, that's exactly what's going on. The really only difference is you both also draw from the general deck, and it is more of an engine-building economic game and less of a fighting game. So I understand why it's in here. I understand why the asterisk is in here, but Ignacy is obviously going to keep pumping these out. He has another expansion he has planned on coming out that he's going to be talking, or he's teasing right now. And I think he has some future races he's going to come out. So this game has long legs like most LCGs would.
And I considered it because, it's like y'all just said, it's one of those games that if I'm building a deck, then it can go in and be considered from that standpoint. But, Joe, you bring out an interesting point, which none of the games now that I've got on my list, and I know I'm stretching here because it is possible, but I haven't heard any multiplayer decks or multiplayer games. And when Marty and I played Lord of the Rings TCG, that multiplayer mechanic was incredible. I'm waiting. If you want to get my money, card games, you come out with something that has a great multiplayer aspect of it, to where there's an end goal and you can't really team up and be a kingmaker or something like that. You got my money. But I was waiting to hear if any of y'all would come up with that, and I didn't hear any yet.
And then it's kind of a sidetrack, but doesn't the Game of Thrones, this new edition, have that sort of mechanic for up to 4 players?
Yeah, you can actually play up to 6. Now, you can't do it with just 1 core set. You can play up to 4, and you can play up to 6 with 2. Now, the experience of playing multiplayer with only 1 core set is not great, I don't think. If you want to play 2-player with it, that's my number 10. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. We're just playing head-to-head. But I can see the potential there once maybe you get 2 core sets or 3, and then you start to get some expansions. I think really you want expansions too, because it has this neat thing where you kind of like you choose a role at the beginning of each round. So if you're familiar with Game of Thrones, like you can be the Hand of the King,
Mm-hmm.
or I can't remember what the money guy's called, Master of Coin, stuff like that. And that gives you sort of a special ability for that round, but it also dictates who you can, who you can't attack, and who you will get bonus points for attacking. So you have these immediate sort of quick alliances that are going to go from round to round. So you might want to choose a role for, I get extra money this round, or I get a buff to my intrigue ability. Or you might choose, well, okay, I think you're going to choose this role, and then I'm going to try to protect myself from you, or something like that. So that's very cool. I think it shows potential, but I'm not sure. I can't confidently say that's going to be a lot of fun because it hasn't been yet.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. I get that. So I don't know. Did you ever play the Lord of the Rings TCG?
I haven't. No.
The mechanic was for multiplayer. It was very simple. There was a good guy. Everybody else played bad guys, and then it rotated. So then the next guy in line would play the good guy. Everybody plays bad guys against him. So everybody's always ganging up against one person, and that one person rotates around the table. So there's no like, ooh, you're a little bit overpowered, so we're going to come after you this turn, and now we're going to attack you. That was built into the game who you were supposed to attack.
Right.
And it worked really well. And both Tony and I have been waiting for something that has not only great two-player, but great multiplayer, like he said.
And the resource pool controlled that. So at BGG-Con, we'll bring some LCG decks of that, or TCG decks of Lord of the Rings. I think, Marty, we still have 4 boxes of anyway, I'm going to cry.
I think I've got unopened boxes still somewhere.
Yes. So anyway, but all right. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
So that is my number 2. Now, Marty's number 2 is Tony's number 1. And Marty's number 1 is Tony's number 2.
Well, then we'll do Tony's. We'll do my number 1 with Tony's number 2,
which is your number 4.
Which is my number 4, correct?
Okay.
So go ahead.
All right. So it's your number 1, Marty. You got the cheer, and I'll do my number 1.
Okay. So it is Android Netrunner, also from Fantasy Flight. This is the game that came out 2012. It's the reboot of basically the game that was made back in the 90s from Richard Garfield for Wizards of the Coast. FFG got the license, retweaked it, sent it out as an LCG, and this is the game that sucked a lot of time from both Tony and I for a couple years. And for us to stay with one game for that long, it must have been something we really enjoyed, and we really did. And there was a couple reasons why. One, it was asymmetric. That was awesome, and that typically it's like we're both kind of a lot alike, and we both kind of do the same things on our turns. Netrunner is totally different. The runner has a totally different action selection system and different choices to make on their turn than what the corporation does, and they're both trying to achieve different things. Corporation's trying to set up these servers and ICE. The runner's trying to get through that stuff, and the whole goal is to steal agenda points. So when you go through the deck building mechanic, you're building 2 decks, a runner deck and a corporation deck. All the runners feel different. All the corporations feel different. There was enough there to keep it very interesting by doing different decks all the time. There was a decent learning curve for a card game. I think I grasped Netrunner easier than I did Doomtown. But once I got it, for me, it just really kind of clicked. Haha, Netrunner clicks because when you spin a turn.
Yeah, I got it.
It's punny. It's geeky puns. And so another thing, it was very thematic. Most of on my list are very, very thematic, except for maybe Ashes because it's kind of generic in what it is. But our theme draws me in, and this thematically just works. You're trying to build up servers to protect yourself. Somebody's trying to hack into them. And then when I heard about this game having a bluffing mechanic, I didn't really understood what that meant until I played it. And as the corporation, it's all about the bluff. It's all about, what's he trying to protect with that server? Is it something I need to steal? Is it something an agenda? Or is it a trap? You know, you try to goad one of the runners into running in there and try to trap them and hurt them. So the bluffing is the way you put out the ice where you can't see them, and you try to set a trap for somebody to come in and run. The bluffing just works really well, and it's rare for a card game like this to have this bluffing mechanic in it. And Tony, you run with it.
I think you pretty well covered it all. I think the marathon's over, dude.
Sorry.
You hit all of them. You hit all the high points of it, and like you said, bluffing was what has me on this. The various capabilities of each of either the corporations or the runners, their powers were unique enough to where you could try out anything. The deck building was amazing, that you're always looking for that. How can I do a combo that someone else is not expecting? Because everybody's trying. You know, it was all the rage. It's still all the rage from the championships and everything. Enjoy the game. The problem is other things have come out, and I will admit it, I haven't bought an expansion in forever. I haven't bought anything else. I haven't gone out, and this was one of the few games that I got into tournament play and enjoyed it. But I've since stopped. I had to break it. I said, okay, enough's enough, and I think a lot of it came down to just am I stepping off the edge with this? It's time to go to something else. But if I can play Netrunner with someone, I will be happy to break it out. My deck's a few years old, but that'll work. I bet it could probably still. That's the other neat thing, Joel, I think, is my deck could probably still beat, with all the expansions that have come out, I bet I could still probably win a game or two, even with all the new cards that are out.
And you're saying that because of the skill of play? I mean, because it comes down more to skill of play than deck?
I just think it's that well balanced. I have no skill.
Gotcha.
And that's what someone was telling us, that who's still in the game. They basically said, you know, we haven't bought expansions in a while, and they're like, we still use a lot of the core set, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just a testament to how well the game has been balanced. But I'll admit, I haven't gone out and checked the errata in a while and seen all the changes they've made.
Also, for me, I felt like the game was starting to leave me behind. We have had and still do a very active community in our area of a lot of Netrunner gamers. Kind of one of the beefs I had with FFG is they do pump these cards out pretty quick, and it seems like as soon as I got used to the new cards, here comes another deck. And people who treat this game as a lifestyle game studied those brand new cards and integrated into the deck, and I felt like I can't keep up. I'm still trying to learn how to play the last deck. And they just kept exceeding in skill level above me to where they were just starting to blow me away, and I just felt like I got left by the curb, which is why I too stopped buying. I'll play any time, but competitively I kind of had to step aside. Right.
So why is it your number 4, Joel?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of what you're saying there with the learning curve moves a little bit down. Now the bluffing, I really like it, but I played it enough times where it was just sort of a little bit of the luck of finding the agenda on either side. What kind of twisted me a little bit wrong, and I understand if you have a meta, which I don't. I basically had one person that I play this with. And we would just make decks and play and have fun. But it seems to me like if you don't have a meta, it can feel more lucky than it probably is. But if you have a meta and you know what kind of deck you're playing, you kind of know, okay, well, he's got this kind of deck, so he would put ice here, 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 or he's trying to go for these different combos, and so then you can make better deduction or sort of smart guesses, educated guesses about where the stuff is. The reason it's higher on the list and not as high, but I like the theme of it. I think it's very thematic as well, because like the runner, they take meat damage and different kinds of damage and all that stuff, and so you really get the sense like they're jacked in, but they're getting sort of attacked back. And that was some of my more fun decks was, with the traps and stuff, where it's like, okay, yeah, come run at me, because I'm gonna just blast you with this sort of Trojan horse backdoor thing that I, put in. So it's just. Again, it's high, but it's not quite as high, just because of the learning curve and stuff. And I think the meta is required in this case. It's a little bit less casual friendly. I mean, Doomtown to me is I think I agree. Doomtown's more complicated, but I think you can just play once you know it. You can just play Doomtown for fun more readily. Whereas I think Netrunner, like, it really requires I don't know, to me, a meta game and like competitive scene. It's not like very fun casually, but that's just me. Yeah.
I understand. I understand from that.
So we can switch now to Tony's number 1, which is Marty's number 2, which is my number 9.
Number 9.
And your number 1, Joel, is my honorable mention.
Okay.
All right. So jumping to my number 1, Marty's number 2, Joel's number 9 would be Lord of the Rings, Fantasy Flight, LCG. And the reason why it be number 1 for me solely because of solo. You can play that game solo. And I think that's what put it ahead of Netrunner for me. Love the art, the idea, the deck building. You're going to have to change it as you do the various missions. I like the fact you're trying to do something besides beat somebody up. It's co-op. Marty knows I love all the co-op games that are out there. It was one of the first LCGs that we played. Fell in love with it then. I like that there's a scoring mechanism depending on how well you win and what you beat. I like the fact that they've come out with the expansions or the sagas where you can go out and feel like you're going through the books. That's pretty cool. I mean, they're really doing a great job of support. They've got support for it if you want to play it in your store. But for me, like I said, solo for Lord of the Rings is what I really think it makes that game number 1 for me. Marty, why number 2 for you?
Number 1, it's the only game on here that's co-op. So it's not a head-to-head thing, and thus I feel like it's easier to get people into the game. Like there's a couple of our friends that have went out and bought a core set because they just want to try it. Even though there's a bunch of cards that have been released, they don't feel like they need to catch up because not like Netrunner where you're having to compete head-to-head and you feel like got to stay up to date. With just a few cards, we can probably help them build a deck because I want them to build the best deck possible because we're working together. So the co-op aspect really put it up there for me. Also, it's very thematic in that I love how you can play through Hobbit stories. Right now you're playing through saga expansions where you're actually playing through Lord of the Rings, and each of the scenarios in these saga expansions are carrying you through the story, which I really enjoy. It's thematic in the sense that you feel like you go out on quest and you have to achieve quest, but sometimes you have to go off to the side and go to a location and visit a location. That's kind of a side quest before you get back to your main quest. The way that you attack people that come out in the middle of the table, and once your threat gets high enough, they kind of like, ooh, you're becoming something we need to deal with. And they have that mechanic of eventually they'll come out and attack you, but otherwise they'll just stand in the middle of the table and leave you alone. It just works really well. My only fear with Lord of the Rings is it is now the oldest current running LCG, so I wonder how many more years it's going to hang around.
Yeah, I enjoy it. All I have is the base set. And the thing for me that kind of pushes it down is, frankly, I haven't ventured outside of the base set. But when it comes to the deck building, I'm kind of going to talk out of both sides of my mouth here. I kind of feel like you can sit there and piece together your deck perfectly, and then at that point I'm like, well, if I just stack the deck, then I'm going to win. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like each of the quests has like a certain matchup that's going to beat it, and I think that's really cool. But that's just what kind of like it just kind of slightly knocks it down for me. And I've only ever played it solo, like you said, Tony. It's a little bit. I tried playing it with the family one time, but it's like something about like cards with lots of text just doesn't go. You know, we can play like Steam or something, but if there's a ton of text, I was like, okay, no, that's just, I just found that doesn't work. But I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I made my point, then I was going to go back to another point. I really like the game though, and that's a question I actually have for you, Marty, because you mentioned like, okay, you had a friend that just bought the base set. So I kind of feel like, okay, I want to get some more stuff just to try it, but do I have to like do it in order, or can I jump up to like the next big box and just buy that, or do I have to like go into this big chasm of cards?
Tony found and go ahead, you're probably going to say...
No, go ahead.
Tony found a wonderful article online, now it's probably several months old now, that says if you want to get into this game, then start with the core, then buy this, buy this, buy this, and they kind of have you jump around for building an effective deck that can get you through anything, so you don't have to go back to the beginning. You could also go for theme type decks. I want a dwarf deck, or I want an elf deck. I will say that this is a very punishing game. Tony, from times Tony and I have played, we have lost more than 50% of the time easily. That's where I like this. Okay, now we need to tweak our deck for this particular scenario. Almost for certain, that same deck will not work the next scenario because it's tuned for one particular scenario. So it's not like you can just run with the same deck and run through the entire Lord of the Rings story. It just won't work.
Right.
And so I think that's one draw for me.
Yeah, and to the point, Joel, you said, do I need to go out? You don't need to buy all the expansions. Maybe you do go invest in the sagas if you can find them, and play that. It works just fine doing that. There you go, right there. Boom. Which one's that? The Road Darkens. So,
that is on the Road Dark. It's not even open yet because we have to finish the one before this before we can play this one.
Yeah, it's kind of like, and I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it. It's Lord of the Ring Legacy.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
But I'm not tearing up one single card in it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I am talking out both sides of my mouth, because on the one side, like, the back of my brain is telling me, well, you can just tweak the deck and do it exactly right. But that's really the fun of the game as well, is getting those new matchups, and which I haven't done, but and then tweaking your deck and then building it against yourself in some ways.
Well, that's the fun too of the co-op, in that if I have a certain strategy and it's like, Tony, you go build a deck that's good at fighting. I'll build a deck that's good at questing. Joe Bob over here, you build a deck that's good on keeping us healed, that sort of thing, and you try to synergize your decks together to make it the most efficient. So there's a lot of outside of the game planning and designing before you ever sit down at the table.
Yeah. Alrighty. So, we got to do my number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my number one is Mage Wars, and I'm gonna say just all of Mage Wars, and I do classify it as an LCG because you don't build a deck, but you build a spell book, and it's head-to-head. My favorite way to play it is it's called Domination. It's in this new line called Battlegrounds. So that's really cool, because in the old game you just had this one sort of static board, which frankly would get static after you played it a bunch. This new one has puzzle piece boards that you stick together. You can do different shapes for different numbers of players. I apologize if you can hear my grandson crying in the back, but he's hungry. And I lost my train of thought. Oh, and they have this new thing where you can dominate different points on the board. So instead of just slogging it out with different mages and trying to kill them, which can take a long time and actually adds to the length of the game, the new Domination plays much quicker because you're capturing key objectives. If you think like, I don't know, Battlefield, those video games where you're controlling different flag points and ticking down and getting sort of victory points for them, that to me is by far the best way to play. But they've also got this new Academy way, which is really fun. It's sort of like the quick version. It's sort of like you're all in the same zone, and you're just bashing each other left and right, and the game's play super quick. But the thing that really pushes it up for me to the number one is I just love the theme of the game, and just the variety of card types and the different mages. Like the Wizard does his thing, the Beastmaster does his thing, and the Soldier and all this kind of stuff. And they all play super different, and like there's the Druid, you can grow this vine across the board and stuff like that. But anyway, so it's basically the theme, and that really sinks it in for me. It's really very sort of trashy, like smashing you in the face, rolling lots of dice, and just very visceral combat and everything like that. So, Marty, you said it was an honorable mention for you.
It is an honorable mention because of the mechanic of that. You're not drawing cards from a deck. You're developing a spell book that you can have access to anytime. Again, very unique. Also, with the original board game, locations do matter. I talked about where Doomtown locations matter. That's more area control, but this is, where your position on the board makes a difference. I love the Academy version that just came out that kind of strips that away and just gives you the basic game where it's just more of a straight card game. So there's multiple ways to play this game, like you mentioned, the domination and everything. So there's the Arena, Domination, Academy. There's multiple ways to enjoy this game, whether you want to just play more of a light game like the Academy game or go full bore and do the full thing.
And the only reason why I think, for me, Marty, is the reason why we didn't jump on this is because, hey, you want to play a card game? Yeah, slog the big Mage Wars box under your arm, right? You're having to carry it because it has all the elements we've already talked about. You said mashes, pick the first 5 cards you want. Boom, there you go. Dice rolling, resources, your mechanics from that standpoint. Oh, wait, pre the magnetic board, how am I tracking the mana and the hit points on this board? Oh, he just knocked that over. It has the various deck styles that I like, but it did not catch on here. I think a lot of it had to do with it was viewed as a board game because of what you brought to the table, and people just stayed away from it, but it had all the other elements we've mentioned.
Yeah, Tony and I usually we have what we call our lunch games, where we can sit down at a lunch table and play. And Mage Wars, the original, wasn't going to fit that bill for us because we didn't have room for a game board. With the Academy, we now do, so we do have that option now.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, and just a quick thing there. They are talking about like making it a dungeon crawl, so you can take your mages that you've built for Arena and then go through a dungeon and fight monsters and stuff. So it seems like it's going to get a lot of, variety and stuff in the future. So this would be really cool.
Yeah, and I will definitely we've already played, what is it, Marty? Academy or Arena? I can't remember. That we tried
Academy.
Academy. I'm looking forward to it, seeing how it can, but once again, that's kind of like you said, the Mage Wars was positioning on the board, where this other one is just, let me go attack you, you attack me, back and forth, back and forth. I got that already. So let's see how this thing develops, and we'll probably go back and revisit it, assuming nothing else jumps out at us. I know.
Yeah, that's the best thing. I guess now that we've come towards the end,
Yes.
We know the big announcement a month ago, when AEG has now sold the rights to Legend of the Five Rings to FFG, and now that's going to come out as an LCG in 2017. Holy cow! I'll call it right now. That will be the next huge LCG. You're talking about a huge player base that already exists right now, kind of like you did with Versus, Joel. There was a huge player base for Versus, and you say all of a sudden you got a group of 1,000 people wanting to play.
Yeah.
L5R is going to be, it's going to be sunsetted from AEG and then take it like a year break and come back. I think that's going to be huge. L5R is a very popular game around here at one of our local game stores. Magic isn't the big game; it's this game.
Yep, I could. We'll have to see. Yeah, it'll be interesting what they do there.
What, have you not already pre-ordered?
Not yet. Not yet. So I figured let me just run through quickly to sort of recap. I will post a geek list and stick it in the video description and everything. And then maybe we can cover any honorable mentions and then wrap up, because I am running against the time limit here. So I'll just count down my 10, Tony's 5, and Marty's 5. So my number 10, Game of Thrones. Number 9, Lord of the Rings. Number 8, Warhammer Invasion. Number 7, Doomtown. Number 6, Ashes. Number 5, Versus. Number 4, Netrunner. Number 3, Star Wars, the card game. Number 2, Imperial Settlers. And number 1, Mage Wars Arena. And then, Tony, what was your 5?
My 5 were Pba Baseball, Doomtown. Number 4, Ashes. Number 3. Number 2 was Android Netrunner. And number 1 was Lord of the Rings, living card game.
All right. Marty?
Mine was number 5, Warhammer Invasion. Number 4, Doomtown. Number 3, Ashes, Rise of the Phoenixborn. Number 2, Lord of the Rings. Number 1, Android Netrunner. With honorable mentions going out to Mage Wars versus Game of Thrones, because, hey, Game of Thrones was the one that started the whole LCG model, so I had to throw them in there somewhere. And Warhammer 40K Conquest, which I actually still play today, but didn't crack my top 5.
I was surprised by that, sir.
Well, it didn't. I think it's a fun game. I think it's very approachable. I think it's easy to learn. It's just I don't feel it brought a lot new to the table either, personally.
Yeah.
But it's a really good game, and a lot of people do play it around here. I just bought the new Tyranids expansion. That game's going to go a long way in how they interact with the planets now and how that's going to change. But it just didn't crack my top 5. But it did get the honorable mention.
And the only thing I'm going to say is I didn't know if it would qualify, and I wish I had a copy. I just haven't been able to find one. Would have been Baseball 2045. You know, I'm kind of curious if that would have qualified here.
Yeah, and that's another one that I had on my sort of does it qualify list. I kind of put it no because it's more of a deck builder.
Right.
You sort of, you pick a team and then you draft and stuff through games. But like Mistfall might be another one. That one really actually reminds me of Lord of the Rings, the card game. But you don't really build a deck in that one either, though. So,
yeah.
And I don't know that I would put Mistfall on the list. Baseball 45. That might have knocked Game of Thrones out. I think. I don't know, but if I thought about it too long. So where can folks find you if they don't already listen to you? And they should.
They can go. We have a website, Roll Dice Take Names, and it's just kind of a place marker there. But you can go subscribe to us on iTunes. We also have a BGG Guild. Our Twitter handle is @DiceAndNames. If you ever want to talk to us on email, you can email us at rolldicetakenames@gmail.com. We're also on Stitcher. We are a member of the Dice Tower Network. So if you go to the Dice Tower page, you go to the Dice Tower Network page, we are listed under there with a lot of other fine podcasts out there too.
And he always forgets my favorite account that I'm in charge of because really nothing happens. Instagram. We do have an Instagram account, by gosh, people. But I do want to plug our BGG Guild is a very active guild. So please, if you're not a member of that, jump on over there. A lot of great discussions are happening over there.
Yep.
Well, thanks a lot for joining me, guys. I know you guys have been LCG fans, and like I said, I've been getting into it a lot over the last couple of years, and it's been growing. And so I'm glad we were able to sit together and talk over this. And my grandson has his input, but we're not going to take it right now. I don't know if you guys can hear or not, but he's
barely.
Fed.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you guys joining me.
I was going to say thank you so much for having us on. And, dude, we're going to see each other in November at BGG Con, so we need to pick a couple of these LCGs and bring some decks and we'll play.
Well, I'm already bringing versus there. Mr. Weapons Grade Tabletop there. Hunter Shelburne he's really smitten with the game, so we're going to definitely bring that. I can bring Ashes too, or one of us can. We can play that.
Rodney,
as well.
I know, is bringing Ashes, so
there we go.
Between Ashes and we'll bring some verses. It'll be fun to sit down and play all those. So we'll get to do those in about 2 months, or about a month actually.
Good deal. Okay, thanks again. I look forward to seeing you guys and everybody else down there too.
Yep. Thanks everybody for watching.
Bye-bye. All righty.